It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Flying down from Nova Scotia today.
This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds.
I have a dream that all men are created equal.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Dune Nation? Welcome back. You are listening to the Two Dune Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and your captain, and we have an awesome guest here today. We are super excited. Skaggs, do what you do best, pal.
Yes, sir. So he is a libertarian. He is the host of the Sharpe Way. He is a Marine Corps veteran, and he is running for the governor of the state of New York. Larry Sharpe, thank you for joining us. How you doing, man?
I'm happy to be here, guys. I appreciate the invite. Happy to be here chatting about what I hope to be some cool things. We'll see, I guess, though, huh?
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Super excited to meet you and get to talk to you. I actually just finished I know it's older, but I finished your episode with Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah.
And boy, this was the first time I was texting Skaggs. I was like, this is the first time Joe Rogan's annoying me. I was like, I completely I'm more Republican. What I like about the Libertarian Party is like small government, stuff like that. And you were just trying to explain to him, and I was like, I get it. How are you not understanding this?
Well, no, look, let me take a little bit of a responsibility for that. A lot of people don't know what happened when that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Joe Rogan was still big, but not as big as he is now, obviously, but he was still big. The problem is I didn't know that. So my team actually set the entire thing up, right? When you run for office, if you do it right, you build out a large team. That's what I always do. It's my background. I'm a business consultant for my day job. So I built out a large team. My team's like, you got to go on Joe Rogan. I'm like, that's the guy from Fear Factor, right? That's what I remembered him from Fear Factor and the Man Show, right? That's what he was on years ago. I'm old, so I remember him from those things. Him and I are the same age. So I remember him from those things. I was like, oh, okay, that guy. Yeah, that guy's cool. I like him. So literally he's in California then. Now he's in Texas, I think, right? But he was in LA then. So I'm campaigning my ass off in New York. Then I literally fly that morning into LA, go to his studio, do the show, and fly back to New York. So I'm accustomed to speaking to New Yorkers every day, all day long. So someone like you hear what I'm saying, you get it right away. So did every New Yorker. He didn't. So when he's worried about teachers, he's not realizing that it's not, Kansas. In Kansas, teachers get hammered, right? There's states in the United States where teachers are really taking it hard. They're getting $20,000 a year and struggling. New York State, the average teacher makes 80 grand. That's not, they're not living large, but they're not starving, right? Teachers aren't starving in New York State. They're not, billionaires, but they're not starving. And his worry was, well, you're going to be punishing teachers. I'm like, our union's very strong in New York State. Teachers are fine. It's not an issue. And I couldn't get that. So we were talking past each other. So I take some responsibility for that.
Yeah, I remember.
I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Yeah, I remember it myself. I had the same kind of reaction. It was frustrating because I got where you were coming from and I got what you were saying, but Joe wasn't. Normally Joe was great at understanding where people are coming from. So it was a little bit frustrating.
You know what I think it was, just my last interjection before we get rolling here, was I think it was the fact that since you wanted to, for a little bit of context, you want to cut, budgets for the school, and you want to make it smaller and not as big as the administration, and just rely on the teachers and the Board of Education and stuff.
I want to let teachers teach and stop administrators from controlling teachers.
And I get
literally
that.
teachers. If you're a teacher, we make our teachers in New York State specifically, but all across the country, jump through hoops. You got to have a master's degree to be a teacher in New York State, plus go through all types of things. Then they go into the classroom, and now some administrator tells them what to do. Well, if you're going to do that, don't make them jump through hoops. Don't make them get a master's degree.
Yeah.
Get someone who's got a high school diploma and then be told what to do. These teachers are jumping through hoops to be teachers. They care. They want to do the right thing by the students, and then they can't do it. That's why teachers burn out and leave.
Yep. And from the libertarian side, you have faith in the fact that teachers and the PTA can figure out how to get their school district on board. That's where it was being lost on him.
Yes.
That, yes, we're cutting the budget, but I trust the teachers to do the right things for the school, for the district, for the students.
100%. And even if they don't, right? Let's be forward. Let's say they don't. But if you've got 1,000 school districts and some make mistakes, only those school districts suffer, and others can see what went wrong, and others can help out. The damage is minimized and repairing is quick. But if you're in New York State and you take care of all of those teachers and all of those students with one fatal swoop, you crush the entire state and you will never admit you're wrong. And the example of that is Common Core. Common Core in New York State was a disaster. We should have never enforced it. I am not against Common Core. The reality of it is some students actually learn better on Common Core. So make that a tool for a teacher to use if the teacher thinks that's the right tool for your kid. I don't care how your kid learns. If your kid knows 2 + 2 is 4, we're good. How they get there is not my concern. Let a teacher figure that out. And to your point, will a teacher make a mistake? Yeah, they're humans.
Right.
They will. But if I've got to take a choice of some administrator who works in a building miles away from the kids, who never even sees the kids, trust them, who was probably appointed by some bureaucrat, or a teacher who cares about this, I'm going to trust a teacher. That's the person I'm going to trust. It makes more sense.
Yeah, it's a microcosm of how centralization almost, it just doesn't work. You know, I like it because it's, you know, your theory is almost like a decentralization of the school system in New York, and let people make almost like free market school system.
I'm going to give you a rundown of all the time centralized control has worked. Finished.
Yep.
Done.
Yeah, it just
Short
doesn't
list.
work. Yeah.
Short list. But we keep trying. We keep trying. In everything we do, we keep trying. We don't learn because it feels good to have control. And I get that. That's true, right? People like having control. It feels good to have control. So here is what I would ask people who want to have control. Have your own small little kingdom. Have your own little fiefdom and control that. And you get to have some control, but you don't control everybody else.
Yep. Well, that was kind of like one of our previous guests, Professor Giordano, where we were talking about how there's always the push for free Medicare, you know, socialized medicine, and California is always pushing it. And so he said, okay, if we really think it's going to work, let California do it first, and then the rest of the country will see how it works.
It could be the
if
trial
it doesn't
run.
work, then we don't have to infect all 50 states. We could just turn California back to what it was prior. But no, we got to do it across the board and everybody suffers.
Well, but remember, when you're unsure if you're right or if you actually think you may be wrong, you don't stand on the actual facts. You need social proof, right? So if I know that, hey, Medicaid for all is exactly the right answer, but I have no data. In fact, one state tried it, Vermont did, it didn't work. So we already have a case. It was Vermont, and Vermont's got like 7 people in it, and they couldn't do it. So I mean, you know, so I think we have a good example there. But my point is, if I know it doesn't work, I have to fall back on it does work, doesn't it, Chris? Come on, Chris, tell me it works.
Right.
And you go, well, yeah, it does. See.
Right, or you have to make the emotional argument. What, do you want people to die? You want people not to have Medicare?
Absolutely.
You don't think Medicare is a human right? Yeah,
Yes.
Those are not real arguments. Those are emotional arguments, which people make all the time. It's hard to argue with that.
Politics is emotional.
Yeah,
It's become very emotional.
Politics is emotional. Yes, which is why I push third parties so much. You might say, Larry, why don't you just run as a Democrat in New York City or run as a Republican and try to break the Democratic whatever? I hear those arguments all the time. But here's the problem. Democrats and Republicans don't have policies. They don't have to have policies. Their policy is ideology. And the ideology is other guy bad.
right.
So if I'm a Democrat, all I have to say is So I'll stop the evil Republicans and the Trumpskins and the racists and the fascists, and we'll stop them. That's all I have to say. And Democrats go, you're right. I hate those evil Republicans, and they vote for me. I don't have to have a policy. If I'm a Republican, I go, stop the evil socialists and communists from taking over the world, and I'll save you. And if I'm a Republican, I go, you're right. I'm afraid of those people, and I vote for you. There's no policies. It's I'll get the other guy. That's it. But to be third party, you have to have policies. To your point earlier, how did I make it on Joe Rogan when so many others didn't? For someone who didn't really know how powerful he was at the time either. It's because of my policies on raising funds without taxation. He liked the ideas of solving problems that he couldn't find anyplace else. I would argue, anyone listening, anyone watching, go to your local Republican or Democrat, go to their website, try to find me an actual policy. You won't. What you'll find is we got to stop this, do that, do this, but there'll be no policy. It'll all be ideology. It's all over the place. Then go to my website and you will find actual policies to include white papers. You will find exactly how to solve things. And you may disagree. You may go, Larry, that's not a good idea. But at least now you and I are talking about solving a problem. The issue we have to change, and only a third party. Obviously, I'm biased. I want it to be my party. But it could be any party, which is why, by the way, the Forward Party's behind me. Trying to get the Unite Party behind me, too. They're all getting behind me because they know that a third party can make a change, can make a shift. That's the difference. Without a third party, it goes to where we are right now, which is I look at a win as the other guy losing.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Not as me winning.
Biden didn't have to say anything other than I'm not Trump.
That was his entire campaign.
Yeah, he was essentially, in my opinion, I know some Trump people are going to say the whole thing was rigged, but he was anti-elected, essentially, in my opinion.
100% correct.
Yeah, that's
You're
my
right.
theory on it. Yeah.
Look, I'm from New York City. I met many people who voted for Biden. Many. None of them liked Biden.
Right.
Most of them actually didn't even hate Trump. They hated Trump's tweets.
Yeah.
And this
Isn't that
goes
amazing?
back. Yes, this goes back to it's emotional.
Yeah.
I would go to people and I would talk and I'd say, well, here's some policies, and they'd be some Trump policies. And they go, oh, that's not a bad policy. Then I'd say, oh, that's Trump's policy. Oh, that policy sucks. But you just said you liked it. Yes, but now that it's Trump's, it sucks.
Right.
And then they would always follow it up with something like this. I wish they'd take that guy's phone away.
What's up, Doom Nation? Does the media got you down? The news nothing but bad? This administration driving you to drink? Well, the Two Doom Men podcast is super excited to announce we are teaming up with the 13 Stripes Winery. 13 Stripes is a veteran-owned company that makes great American wine. And they are most famously known for their Let's Go Brandon wine. And now, if you use our promo code DOOMED at checkout, you will receive an extra 10% off your purchase. That's DOOMED, DOOMED, to receive an extra 10% off. Come on, Doom Nation. Let's save this country one bottle at a time.
I heard that all the time.
It was too harsh for their sensitive ears.
It was.
And their eyes, yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
it was.
if that was also that important, I mean, they have theoretically, I guess, taken his phone away. He doesn't have to. Are things better now? Is the world a better place without Trump having his phone?
But I'm not. This is a valid point. I don't know. I'm not a valid point. An interesting point. Is Trump more likely to get elected without the phone or with the phone? I actually don't know, because the phone kind of made him popular, but the phone also made people not like him. So if the phone goes away, will more people be okay with him?
He might gain extra. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Because he's already going to have the people he has. And then without the Twitter, he might get a few more because they're like, oh, he's not ranting and raving now. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right. He's not calling Sarah Jessica Parker horseface or whatever. He might be saying things like that.
Right. Exactly.
So Larry, you were talking about your website before, and I was reading it before we decided to come on here and do this interview with you. And your website essentially is almost like a story of my life in a way. And you talk
I like that.
You talk about how there's high taxes and people leaving New York State in record numbers, right? So I'm almost a trial case of that. I'm born and raised in the Bronx, lived in New York almost my entire life up until I was like 28 years old. Had saved up enough money, was looking to buy a home, right? Started looking around the Bronx, the Westchester area. Impossible.
I know that, yes.
Taxes, between the price of the house. So I ended up leaving. I didn't go far. I'm right over the border in Connecticut, a little bit upstate. It was a little bit more affordable. I could actually swing it. Over the past year, I was just looking it up. 300,000 people left New York State from 2020 to 2021.
Yes.
So there's a mass exodus, right?
Yes.
If you are to become governor, how do you slow this, and how do you fix the fact that it's basically impossible to buy a home for just a normal middle class person?
This is the number one issue you've just brought up, my friend. Number one issue that I brought up 4 years ago, which is why half of my website hasn't changed, because all the bad crap that was happening 4 years ago, that same shit's happening now.
Right.
People were leaving at about 100,000 people per year. Now it's like 300,000 per year. We've lost over 2 million people in the last 10 years. We lost one congressperson. We should have lost two, but we'll be losing another one. 10 years was 2 or 3 more. It is the state's a disaster. Yet our budget has gone up about $30 billion and our population has gone down 500,000. Yes, it's the biggest issue. And I always said, I will judge my success under one important metric, and that is, has the bleeding stopped? Meaning, are people no longer, in my first 4 years, are people no longer leaving New York? If they are, I have failed. If they're no longer leaving, I have won. I am not promising to get them coming back yet. That's too much of a
whole nother story.
Once you leave too, it's hard to come back. Once you leave too, you've moved your whole life. You're not going to just immediately turn on a dime and come back.
Let me just get them to stop leaving. Let me just stop the bleeding before I get anything going on first, right? So Larry, stop the bleeding. You're correct. So
I got to say, Larry, it's up to you probably, because I want out too.
I know.
I'm born and raised in New York. I love New York, but I got to get the F out, man. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If it wasn't for friends and family,
yes, go ahead.
If it wasn't for friends and family,
yeah.
Oh man, the South is the place for me. Every time Skaggs and I travel down South, we love it. We love the atmosphere, the people, the style, the slow pace of living. But I mean, but then again, it's not New York. You know, I had a buddy who lived in Texas and I wanted to move. And the one thing he told me that turned me off, he's like, there's no good Chinese food down here. There's no good pizza. There's no good delis. He's like, you got everything you need in New York on every street corner. And it's true, but that's all we got. That's really it. You know,
I know, but COVID shut that down.
Right.
Yeah.
The COVID lockdowns got rid of that, because I live in Queens now, right? I was born in Manhattan, lived in the Bronx too, right with you, brother. Now I live in Queens. I get New York State. I get New York City. I travel the state every year. I've crossed every county, also 2 counties. I cross them every single year. I touch every county. I love this state. It's a beautiful state. Our government is shit, but our state's amazing, right? That's just how it works. The government is so oppressive, it breaks up families. My mom had to retire in South Carolina. That's where she died, because she couldn't afford to live in New York State anymore. She couldn't retire here. So let me cover what you said. Let me answer your question. I have to do something big, and I mean very big, bigger than I did before, because the damage that was done in the past 4 years is even worse. So now I have to find an answer to solve a bunch of problems with one fatal swoop. And that is creating what I'm calling the VAT. That is the Voluntary Assistance Trust. We're going to create a trust in New York State, similar to what Singapore does, similar to what Norway does, what they call a sovereign fund. We're going to take a chunk of our tax base, about $80 million of our taxpayer base, $80 billion of our taxpayer base. We're going to shove that into a fund, raise money based upon that, do it to where it's not debt, but instead is a dividend-based coin, where people get coins and get shares, and they get a dividend every year based upon the amount of tax revenue New York State brings in. Now, what does that mean? It's a financial product we're going to create so that we can raise literally $900 billion in 3 years. If we can do that right, it is a massive attempt. I know, but it has to do it because I have to pay for several things, because the New York State taxpayer cannot pay for it anymore. Number one thing I want to pay for is I want to pay for education. Why? Our Constitution says education's a right. See how well that's gone, making things a right. But that's what in our state, it is a right. So New York State must pay for grades 1 through 12. So we're going to pay directly from Albany. Going to pay directly from this fund into each district by number of kids there. $18,000 to $20,000 per kid per year. There it is. You might go, Larry, it's a lot of money. No, it isn't. Right now we spend about $28,000 per kid. So it's less. We're going to send it directly. We send it directly per kid, which means the money follows the kid. In addition to that, we're going to have a credit of $4,000. If you want to go private school or if you want to go homeschool, supporting more localized schools, supporting private schools, supporting homeschooling. If you want to do it, you can. Why does this matter? COVID taught us something. When the New York City schools and New York State schools collapse, we don't know what to do. Our communities no longer have the institutional knowledge to educate our kids. That is a problem that I'm going to fix. That is going to allow our communities to begin to get back in action, supporting each other. However, big caveat here, whether you are in a private school or homeschooling, since we're paying for school, you may still use the school facilities. So homeschool your kid and they can still be in a football team if they want to. Put your kid in private school, but they can still be in the local chess club, whatever, right? You can still do that anyway. I still want to make communities become closer together, no matter where your kid's being schooled. Why does that stuff matter? Once I do that, I've just cut the budget right away. Not just that, once I cut that budget and I give the money directly, there's no extra grants happening whatsoever. We then add my K through 10 plan that I talked about in 2018. Federal funds are out, state funds are out. All those administrators go away. All those administrators go away. I now have a surplus, believe it or not, at each county level, allowing all the schools to consolidate as they see fit, whatever the case may be. Every schooling becomes better in general, but I'm still not done. Once I do that, that pulls, believe it or not, about $60 billion out of the budget. The budget goes from 220, which is what is about right now, down to 160, like that. This becomes a manageable budget at least. Now it's manageable. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, deficit spending goes away, debt goes away. I'm still not done. We do that. I don't need school tax anymore. Remove school tax. You get rid of school tax, the average New Yorker, their property tax is cut in half.
Right.
In half, gone. If your property tax is cut in half, several things happen. Number one, rents stabilize. If rents stabilize, the youth can stay because rent becomes reasonable and it's stabilized. The youth can stop packing up, getting educated and packing up and leaving. They can actually stay in New York. Not just that, people can retire in New York. Oh my God. We are taking our retirees and pensioners. They're going to Florida and spending their pensions in Florida. Spend your pension here. I'm not mad at them for leaving. It's our fault for having a shitty state. They should want to stay and spend their money here, which is what I want them to do.
If they're going to leave, it should be because they want the weather and the beach, not because the state is a shitty place to live.
Correct.
And they can't afford it. Yeah.
So I got to add one more piece to this on top of that for retirees. And that is, since we're doing this and we're beginning to lower the budget, we can also make one more change to our tax base when it comes to the property tax. Once you hit 65 in New York State, as long as you have owned a home in New York State for 15 years or more, your property tax goes down 5% per year to your 85, zero property tax. Just goes down per year. Not just that. Fair. Now it allows you to stay, but more. Let's say, Chris, you have an elderly grandma, mom, dad, whatever, and you don't want them living alone anymore because they're getting older. That's okay. Have them sell their house, move in with you. If they move in with you, you get that same benefit. Live with you. Now it allows us as New Yorkers, more people staying home versus going into facilities if they don't want to go into facilities. Now you can afford to keep your mom or dad at home. You don't have to sell all their goods or put your stuff in a trust or scam the tax code.
Do like a reverse mortgage or something like that.
And then send my grandma into a state facility, which I don't want to send grandma to. Now, some people want to go to a facility. Let them go. But why wouldn't I make it easier for you to stay at home? Stay with your family and loved ones. I would like New York State to be a state that keeps families together and encourages families to together, so you'll stay here. I would love if the youngest one is going to school here, and then the middle one is starting a business here, while the other one has a career here, while the grandma and grandpa are spending their pensions here. Now we're rocking and rolling. You make that happen, you change the state. And here's what I would argue. No one else is talking about that whatsoever. I'm the only one.
So I have a question. So you make that trust that you were talking about, right? Of what, the $80 billion you were saying. So you're still just the one guy. Even though you're at the top.
Yep.
New York is corrupt. We know 100%. We know this. How do you keep the dirty hands out of that pot? How do you take that money and move it without someone getting greased along the way?
100%. It's a great question, which is why you have to have that. And Skaggs is laughing because he knows you're right. This is why you have to have it run by a separate private company, which is how Singapore and Norway run it. It's not run by a government agency. If that's run by a government agency, it will be blatantly corrupt. It will take all the money. It will just suck it all up. It won't pay for education. It'll be just like when the lottery was supposed to pay for education. That went away too, because that's not run by a separate company. It will be run by a separate New York State chartered company, not by the government. That's how you do it. In other words, we will hire someone to run. It will run on its own with a job to pay for one thing. It will be able to pay for one thing. In its charter, it pays for one thing. It's a financial product, which means it will have to have a state charter, and it can only pay for education. Right. So you would have to actually go in, somehow take the company over, or change the charter against the law. Could it be done? Yes, but man, is that hard. And so far, when you set up this way, it has never been done so far. So far, it's always worked when you follow that way. So that's the way we do it. We make it a separate company with a separate charter that may only do one thing. We do that, change everything.
Okay, fair enough.
So to give even just like another real life scenario based on myself, if it's possible to cut property tax in New York in half, like you're saying, essentially the reason why I was able to buy a house 5 minutes over the border in Connecticut is because the property tax is literally half of what it would have been on the other side, which is Paterson, New York. It's only 5 minutes.
I would have kept you in my state if I was governor.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I would have stayed had you been the governor, right? And Connecticut's not that much better, but you know, it's at least doable. Let's put it that way. Chris, you had another question that I know you're really like personally invested in. Your godfather is, if you want to ask it.
So I'm sure you're probably up to date about it. Let me just get the proper name, Skaggs. You sent it to me earlier. It is the bill. It's Senate Bill S6843B. It's Hochul is trying to pass the natural gas ban bill that will stop all new anything being built after 2023 will have to be electric. And my godfather, he owns a plumbing company. He's part of the PHCC of Long Island. They just had a rally last weekend to inform people, to fight this, to oppose it. Now she's just sticking this in a budget plan, and she hasn't even acquired what did they say here?
That's the move nowadays. You can't get something done, just throw it in the budget. Yeah.
They don't remember, New York State doesn't pass laws anymore. All we do is put things in budgets. They remove my ballot access, my party status in the budget.
Right.
They just put stuff in the budget. And here's why. Cuomo was brilliant in how he used his iron fist. And Hochul is brilliant on how she gives out jobs and has patronage. Neither of them are good leaders, but they're very good at playing the system. What Cuomo would do is he would put stuff in the budget. And if you say, Chris, you're an assemblyman, you don't vote for it because there's garbage in the budget, he would say, why aren't you voting for the budget? And the budget would have like, money for kids' milk in it and go, you didn't vote for kids' milk. You want kids to starve. The
emotional argument again, right?
Correct. And you would be hammered. So you'd have to vote for the budget because he puts everything in the budget. And if there's anything you don't like about it, too bad, which is why the budgets always get passed, why all the laws always get passed. It was brilliant. And the problem is the reason why the assembly doesn't mind is as long as that happens, the assembly's not passing any laws. They're not responsible for anything. You can't blame them. See, we're not passing. So no one's responsible. The governor gets whatever he wants. That's been true for about 10 years. Now, what Hochul does well is whenever there's a problem, she creates a commission or a committee, which copies what Cuomo did. And what these committees and commissions do is they give out jobs to their friends. I'm not joking. So there's a problem with the disabled. Great. Let's not pass a law or let's not change the environment to help the disabled because that might actually solve a problem. Instead, we'll create an office of the disabled. We'll do that. We'll take $10 million out of the budget. I'll give 4 of my friends and their kids a bunch of great jobs. And then people will love me because I gave my friends jobs. Right. These people are powerful. Now a bunch of people who owe me, they never vote against me because I'm the reason why they have a job. They get to now have power. They give out all their contracts. Life is good. She's very good at that. So that's why nothing gets ever solved, and it's never going to be a bill for that. It's just going to go into a budget. So to answer your question, Is this a good or a bad thing?
Yeah. What's your plan for energy dependency for New York, moving forward?
Conceptually, is the concept a good idea to go electric buildings? Yeah, it's a nice concept. I like the idea. I'm not against the idea. It's a nice idea. Is the law a good law? It's a terrible law for several reasons. One, there's no real plan. If you're going to tell me you're going to electrify every building in New York State, okay, how, why, and more importantly, why would you force it? Why wouldn't you instead create an environment where it makes sense to make that happen? And then what will happen is naturally people will shift over. As a libertarian, I follow the rules often, which are one important rule. Good ideas should not require force.
Yeah.
So if it's really a good idea, then why do I have to create this force thing? My idea is grossly simple when it comes to energy. I have a lot of things, but the biggest piece is nuclear energy. I want to put 3 nuclear power plants in the North Country in New York State. Build 3 of them. Why? 3 of them with 3 separate grids. Why 3 separate grids? Piece number 1, I want 3 separate grids because 3 separate grids makes us basically cyberproof. Not 100% cyberproof, but so cyberproof, no one would even attempt to knock us down because there's so many other easier targets throughout the world. 3 separate nuclear grids makes us basically cyberproof. 2, no requirement whatsoever to import any energy. 3 nuclear power plants will be fine. Not just that, we can export energy. And if we take one of those to export energy, New York State takes a cut, that feeds our trust. We can pay for things like Medicaid, Medicare, things like that. Again, taking the tax burden off of the local communities. So now we create money, ways of generating revenue without that. But not just that, that takes time. You can't build a nuclear power plant in a minute. It takes years to build them. And why do I want that? Because I want local people like your godfather and other people to be able to shift their business models appropriately. If I say 2023, people are screwed. If I say we're building nuclear power plants now, and I don't force buildings to become electric, what will happen? Some people will go, this new building should be electric. The nuclear power plant's coming. Oh, yeah, we should. We'll begin to plan ourselves. The market will begin to plan its way around that. What does that mean? I'm sure. How long's your godfather been in business?
Oh, this is his father's business. So since the day, the day he was born.
So there is no doubt technology has changed in his world.
Right.
And as long as he's seen it coming, he has adapted.
Right.
If he sees it's coming, he'll adapt, he'll shift, he'll adjust, he'll hire, he'll train, he'll do what's required. If I don't go 2023, you're screwed. If I go, we're building it.
It's going to destroy the industry. Yeah.
But the industry, if the industry has time, then it will see what's happening and it will shift. If we require less plumbers and more electricians, your godfather will begin to hire more electricians. He'll train his plumbers. He'll cross-train them. He'll have time. He'll see it coming, and we will watch it happen. Plus, there are going to be some people who go, I'm not going to change my building over. That's fine. Your father will service those. Your godfather will service those because some will not turn their buildings over.
Yeah.
And it's fine. If it's a good idea, most people will. If it's not a good idea, most people won't. But nuclear power is the answer for this without question. And the last piece of nuclear power is now we can support Bitcoin, blockchain mining. We can support blockchain mining in New York State, which we need to support blockchain mining in New York State. We need to end the Bitcoin license. It's the dumbest thing we ever made. We're the only state with the Bitcoin license. So stupid. End the Bitcoin license and instead support blockchain mining in New York State. We've got the space. We've got the time of nuclear power. It becomes cheap and it becomes green. So we can actually do that. So you want energy? That's the answer. Without question, nuclear power is the answer. It isn't the only answer, but it's the big answer.
Yeah, right. I think it's a great point. I also think it blows a major hole in some of the climate change people's arguments who are so concerned over climate change, yet they don't support nuclear for some reason. I mean,
absolutely,
human society requires electricity and power to function. If we are going to change things to be better in the future, we need power to get there. If we just shut off all the lights, things will go wild and there'll be chaos and death in the streets. Is nuclear, the cleanest thing in the world? No, but it's pretty clean.
It's the cleanest one we have now that can actually work.
It will bridge the gap until this is the way I was thought, until like solar and all these other things are way
everything
more
catches
efficient.
up.
Well, the other issue is I don't want to stop progress.
Yeah.
Because of people who have jobs. I want to give people who have jobs, business careers, a nice long runway so that they can shift and adjust their business models. That's
Mhm.
what I want. I don't want your godfather to be stuck. I want him to realize, okay, within the next 10 years, I'm probably going to have a bunch of different changes in my business model.
Right.
Okay, how do I begin to make that change now so that now I'm ready for it? Plus, again, some people are just going to say, no, Larry, I'm not changing. So your godfather will know, here's my group of customers that I'm going to keep. Now I got to look in the next 10 years, how do I shift my model to get these new customers? And he'll do it, because if you've been living that long, he's done it before. He'll do it again.
Yeah. And follow up. So let's say Hochul goes through with this. 2023 is the deadline. Can our grid even handle this?
She doesn't care.
So then we're going to be California wildfires, rolling
100%.
blackouts.
And we're going to have brownouts, and we're going to have to buy a whole lot of energy, probably from Canada or Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania fracks, right? So we'll buy energy from Pennsylvania, who's fracking, or from Canada, one of the two. So we'll just raise the budget. Remember, the answer, if your name is Hochul, the answer to everything is more money.
Yeah. And she'll be okay, because I'm sure her house will have a personal like a diesel generator or a gas 100%. Generator. She'll be all right.
Something to remember, when I ran in 2018, I was the only person who ran who was not getting a government check. And now that I'm running now, there's only 3 of us now, and I'll be the only person running who's not getting a government check. This is an establishment person's game. Mm-hmm. They get paid no matter what. It doesn't matter. They get money no matter what. They don't care. Your godfather goes under, so they'd be fine. They don't care. They don't know what it's like to have a small business. They don't know what it's like to be. They don't know what it's like to have to worry, to your point, Skaggs, to have to worry about, oh my God, the tax base is the products is too much. They don't know what that means. They have no idea what that's like. Hochul herself has been a public servant making money off the government tea forever. I'm not against the government job. I'm not. If you get a government job and it pays your bills, that's a good job for you. Good. Take your government job. What I am against is you having a government leadership job and acting like you know everything. That's my problem. You got a government job, good for you. But you're going to sit here and have a government job and go, let me tell you, I know everything. No, you don't. You know your world. I know my world. You know she knows her world. He knows his world. That's fine. Enjoy your own world. I don't have a problem with that. But she doesn't know. And her husband's wealthy anyway. He's a pharmaceutical guy. So he makes cash.
Shocking. Yeah. Shocking.
Her hubby makes cash in pharmaceuticals, and she makes cash here and benefits here. They have no idea.
I didn't even know
what we go through.
No wonder she wore her vaccination date on a necklace around her.
Of course she did.
Pendant. Yeah, I didn't even know that,
Nope.
that the husband was.
Oh yeah, that's she got paid for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that little under the table. So Larry, let me switch gears here a little bit, and we'll come back to New York City. Obviously, me and Chris.
Hold on 1 second, Chris. Did I answer your question? I'll make sure I did answer your question.
Yes, you did. Your plan for energy, and then if our grid would even be able to handle her plan.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry. So this is something we've spoken about a couple times on the show, Chris, and it's gun violence and crime in New York City, where I'm from, born and raised, and it really is sad to see. And I have a couple of statistics here. So from the month of January 2022, New York City saw a 38.5% increase in overall index crime compared with January of 2021. Citywide shooting incidents increased by 31.6%, 100 versus 76 in January 2022, compared with the same period last year. Everybody likes to comment on this, including us, right? And if you're a Republican or conservative, you go, oh, well, this is because they defunded the police. And if you're a Democrat like Mayor Eric Adams, you go, oh, well, this is because of gun manufacturers and them putting guns into the city. The two things don't make any sense.
Correct.
They're
both bullshit. Correct.
In my opinion, right?
Yep, you're correct.
How do you solve this gun violence problem in New York City? I know you would be governor, you wouldn't be mayor, but you'd have to work.
No, but it's the same. You would absolutely help. And the thing is, first off, let's stop calling it gun violence. Let's just call it violence.
Sure.
Number one, right? People think, well, to stop gun violence. No, I don't care if somebody stabs you. I would like someone to not attack you at all. What weapon they use to make it okay, right?
Yeah, the semantics of it.
Yeah, correct. Well, he just beat you over the head and beat you up the back. Oh, that's fine then. No, that's not okay. Yeah, violence is bad. Let me be very clear. There are 3 reasons why we're having violence. The number 1 reason, as always, whenever you have increases in violence, the black market. Every single time, without question, that's the reason. And we're shocked by this, right? We're shocked that the black market would grow. This is our fault, meaning as a state.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be some bad apples in any neighborhood, in any area, always. But the individual bad apples can't do much unless they have gangs to do the job for them. How does some bad apple get a bunch of gangs? Well, what would happen if, say, a government said, hey, young men, you may not go to school for 2 years. Your career's on hold for 2 years. You may not go to work for 2 years. You've got to sit at home by yourself all day for 2 years. Huh. The bad guys went, thank you for my recruiting. You just gave me an army. Not just that. They said, you can't have stuff because our supply chain's broken. Stuff won't come in. Wait a minute. So now everything is more expensive? Thank you. You have literally set up the perfect environment for gang violence. And what do we get? Gang violence. That's what we got. You literally set up an environment for that to happen, and it did. There is now a black market in almost everything, right? Because when they were writing checks to everybody, nobody wanted to go to work legally because I'm getting my check if I don't work, right? Well, I still want to make some cash. So I go to Chris. I say, Chris, can I do these things for you? Chris goes, yeah, 100%, man. Let's do it. I'll give you $400. Thanks, Chris. Great. So I start working with Chris. I come by next week. Hey, Chris, it was not $400. He goes, what $400? I go, we said $400. I don't remember that. Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Now him and I have a problem.
Right.
So now I'm gonna get Skaggs and we're gonna give Chris a visit. We're gonna say hi with our bats. Well, Chris is scared of that. So Chris gets a gun. Well, then I gotta go, me and Skaggs will get somebody else. We're gonna get Joey. Well, then Chris is gonna get Hakeem. And now we got a gang fight. That's how that works on every level. Because remember, when you go to black market, you can't use cops and you can't use courts. So all you have is street justice. That's why there's broad daylight shootings, right? So now me and Skaggs got our crew and we're moving lumber, we're moving guns, moving drugs, of course, right? Of course, moving drugs, because now you've locked everybody in a home. People can't get their drugs. People can't get their prescriptions. They can't see their therapists. And now they're lonely. So they need drugs even more. So they're even more expensive. So we're pushing drugs too, but we're also pushing things like labor and car parts and computer parts, all those things, because they're all valuable now. Well, Chris says, I want my cut. So I'm going to go move some stuff too. Well, we don't like that. Well, we can't take him to court. We can't sue him for contract. We don't have intellectual property. So I decide, let's take care of one of Chris's buddies. Let's put a bullet in him in broad daylight and let Chris know, you mess with our territory, we will gun you down in broad daylight. And who will I use? I will use young men. Why? Because I literally have dozens of them on street corners waiting for something to do to be a big shot. I'll put a gun in their hand and say, go be a big shot. If you guys grew up in the neighborhoods that I grew up in the South Bronx in the 70s. It hasn't changed. That's how you recruit young men. You recruit them then in the 70s, you recruit them here now. That's how that works. And that still hasn't changed. So that's the biggest reason for it. It isn't the only reason. Two other reasons. Next one, lack of hope. When people have a lack of hope, which they've had for the past 2 years, they don't care about consequences. They do short-term joy. Short-term joy is doing something that feels good now, which is very often violence or very often criminal. Third part, mental illness, which connects with homelessness. They're not exactly the same, but they're very close, right? They go together. Mental illness, which is homelessness. Now you have it, and here's what else we did. We emptied the jails out. Right. Bad bail reform. The bail reform bill was a disaster. It was an embarrassment, right? So we emptied the jails out because of COVID and bail reform. And then we can't put people in shelters because of COVID. So now we decided to let's let all the people who are lonely, mentally ill, can't get their therapist, can't get their medication, put them on the street. Wow, there's violence. Oh my God. This is all our fault. We did it all.
And then cashless bail.
Cashless. I'm not against bail reform.
Yeah, me neither.
Here's the issue with bail reform. Very important piece that we did not do. And someone in the governor's mansion is watching my show. Because here's the actual answer to bail reform. Just focus it on first-time offenders.
Right.
That's it.
People make mistakes. Yeah.
First-time offender. Every single time you heard a story about somebody doing something stupid, they were multiple offenders. Every single one of them. All I'm saying is focus bail reform on a first-time offender. A first-time offender gives you the best chance of someone saying, man, I screwed up. I don't want to do this again. I'm a scrape my. You probably know people, I do, who got arrested, and that was their low point.
Yeah.
And that's when they were like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not hanging around Bad Hakeem anymore. I'm not doing it. Right. I learned my lesson. You give the first-time offender that shot. Also, first-time offender, what happens when they go into the area and they arrest 4 or 5 dudes? One of them's just getting milk, right? Well, the other 4 guys are gangbangers. All of them have records. The one guy getting milk has no record. Let him go home. He's a first-time offender. Let him go home.
No,
Other guys, they all got records. So you focus bail reform on first-time offenders, you solve that problem. It literally is the issue. The odds of a first-time offender going out and doing it again does happen. Grossly slim. It's the multiple offenders that just keep doing it. Now, here, I'm going to hammer the judges. Our judiciary, shame on them. When that bail reform bill first came out, I'm on record saying it was a bad bill and it's got to be repaired. But it didn't get repaired because Cuomo had just won and the Democrats had just won this, the Assembly and the Senate. And that bill just slid right through without one conversation in the Assembly. And it was a broken bill from then. And it became a broken law. Now, I was wrong on this one. What I said was, I think we'll be okay because judges aren't going to accept this bad bill. They're going to put people away. They're going to do it. There'll be appeals and rulings. And through the rulings in the courts, we'll fix the bill that way. And was I wrong? The judges just went, oh, good, go out. And shame on them because the judges knew better, but they didn't like bail reform. So they let these people back into our communities, knowing what would happen, and then just go, I'm going to keep them anyway. Well, it's the law. Judges go against the law all the time. That's why you have rulings. That's why you have appeals. Judges should have said, this guy's a violent criminal. I don't care what bail reform says. I'm holding him. And then let that go through the appellate courts and go, you know what? He's right. Let's make rulings on this and change this. That's what should have happened. It didn't.
You're asking people to apply some logic and common sense. I'm
asking judges to not be selfish.
Yeah.
Because they feel attacked because they didn't like bail reform.
Right.
Bail reform was an attack on judges. It was. They're right. It was an attack on judges. It took away their ability to make decisions. I agree it was an attack on judges. But instead of them being savvy and going, you know what, let's fix it, they got mad and we all paid the price.
They don't.
They don't. Correct. Yet again, the elites don't pay.
No.
I'm sorry, I went nuts on this, but how do we fix it? Let me go to the fix piece. First, that's how you fix bail reform. You do an executive order and say, this is for first-time offenders. Now take this hunk of garbage law, get it back into the assembly and fix it. But until then, the rule is first-time offender. That's it. And boom, that puts a good Band-Aid on it. You move on to get it fixed. That's how you fix that piece. The mental illness piece. The mental illness piece. I have a crazy idea. You've let these people out and they go often they go into places like subways, buses, all the time. They go to these public places. Allow nonprofits with the sponsorship of large corporations to have these areas set aside for the people who are mentally ill and homeless. An example, 8 cars in a subway. The last subway car is literally a mental illness help center. The last car, sponsored by Amazon, sponsored by Home Depot. In there is at least 1 cop for security, if not more. Now, if you're mentally ill, you can go to the back, make sure we have, which sounds crazy, let's just make sure we have in our subways or in our bus stations, wherever the case may be, we actually have Wi-Fi there. You can see, oh, it's Johnny, he's come back. How you doing? Check your, okay, that's you. Let's get you some meds. Let's get you to calm down. Why don't you have a sleep? Blah, blah, blah. You might go, Larry, you're going to shovel people to the back of the train? Right now, we do 1 of 2 things. Leave them in the train so they can literally kill people, or we shove them outside in the cold. I have a better idea. Let them get help. Let them go to a place where there is security, at least 1 cop there, plus people who will assist them, who will help them. Do that. All of a sudden, that begins to change. Now the subway becomes a safe area for them, not a scared area for them. There can be help for them right there. If they're doing something stupid, when I also have a cop in every train. So they're doing something stupid, we can grab those people. We don't have people getting killed. So that fixes that area. The lack of hope goes together with the black market. Let people work. If you let people work, then they get out and they go do things. Stop locking people up. Let them work. Change licensing requirements instead to credentialing requirements. What does that mean? If I want to braid hair in New York State, it's going to cost me $20,000.
Wild. I've heard this. Yeah.
It's true.
I used to work on White Plains Road in the Bronx and I spoke to a lot of Jamaican hair braiders. Wild how expensive and crazy the process is. Yeah.
So instead say, look, the state can have a credential. Meaning if you want to get the credential, you go get it. It's optional. But if you don't want the credential, you can still work. You just can't have a state credential. And you must be upfront and let your public know, hey, I'm breeding here. I don't have a state credential. If the population doesn't care, they can still get their hair braided. If they do care, they'll go to a licensed hair braider, right? The community decides what they care about. You do that, you'll watch more people work, more people getting out there doing things. That not only helps the black market, but it also helps to buffer us from inflation, right? Inflation is too much money for goods and services. If you raise goods and services, you will buffer against inflation. Sadly, most of inflation is at the federal level,
Right, of course.
but we can still buffer it here locally if we let more people work, produce services, producing, and support the gig economy. Let people do the side hustle. Let them side hustle and stop punishing them.
Right. You
So
almost
I'm
can't
sorry.
in New York
I hope I
City.
answered all your questions, but none of that had to do with police.
Yeah.
The same police force.
Let me ask you a follow-up, because me and Chris, we're pretty big gun guys. I consider myself Second Amendment absolutist. I don't think we even need a Second Amendment. It's a natural right to defend yourself and own a firearm.
God, please never say that. If we don't have the Second Amendment, we'd be in trouble. We need
I'm
that.
just saying,
It needs to be written.
It needs to be on
It
paper,
needs to be written down.
But not to me. I believe in it.
Oh,
without
okay,
it even
yes,
being
okay. In your yes.
Yes.
But please don't ever say, let's get rid of the Second Amendment.
No, I'm not saying let's get rid of it.
I
No,
know.
I'm not.
Yes.
Of course not. No, it's complete
Needs to
opposite.
be written down.
to-
Yes.
Wrong
to
show
what I
for that.
believe in. Yeah.
There we go. Yes.
So my question is, or my follow-up is, with this rise in shootings, I know you want to say violence is violence, but New York City has the most restrictive gun laws in the country.
Yep.
And it just
Hate
doesn't.
freedom.
Right. Yeah. Right. Ron Johnson over there. What are your thoughts on loosening up gun restrictions and laws in New York City? A lot of the
Let me
states
tell you
around
what
the country are doing open,
Carry
constitutional
permits,
carry.
please.
I know it's a long shot. It's a pipe
I
dream.
would
to think
love
New York
all
City
of
would
those
do that,
things.
but
But let me cover a couple pieces here. Number one, whenever I talk about gun rights in New York City or almost any city, I never bring up the Constitution because most people don't care about it. Being very forward, they don't care. They don't care. They just go, it's an old document, stupid, it's for muskets. They don't care. Doesn't matter. What I do with it is I bring up the idea of a firearm being an equalizer, right? That makes people rethink things. I say, just look, last couple days, recently when you just saw two thugs, who do the thugs go after? Unless it's gang violence, meaning they're enforcing their contracts in gang violence, with that exception, who do the thugs always beat up on? Moms with kids and elderly.
Yeah, weak targets.
They're easy targets, right? The old lady, old man can't fight you because they're old, they can't. And a woman with her kid, young kid, she will do whatever you tell her to do. She won't think twice. Don't kill my kid. What? Yes to anything. Don't kill my kid. Period. And they know this, so they pick on them. Imagine if just one of those elderly men or women had a firearm. In comes thug. Guy draws down, puts a bullet in him. Other guy runs. They're not going to fight. They're going to run, right? So the first guy takes a round, the other guy runs away. Just that happens one time. Now thugs go,
right.
That old man might be packing.
They've been put on
You know
notice,
what?
yeah.
Maybe now people then immediately go, Larry wants to arm the elderly. No, I don't. I want to allow someone who feels threatened in their own neighborhood, if they want to carry a firearm. Everyone doesn't have to, but if you want to, you should be able to, which means the thugs don't know who's packing and who's not.
Yeah,
which
that's
means
the important
all of a
part.
sudden it's not an easy target. When I talk about that, people go, and they begin to rethink. But let me tell you what I want to happen in New York State immediately and then future when it comes to firearms. As you may or may not know, you take your legally purchased firearm and come into New York City, you are going to Rikers Island. Doesn't matter. You are going to Rikers Island, the most violent jail in the country. That's how we currently work in New York State. So the first thing I want to do, simple floor, I want to create universal transportation laws, meaning that no matter where you go in New York State, the minimum is if your firearm is locked and unloaded, you're good. That's it, minimum. And with that, you have to change the definition of loaded. In New York State, loaded, I'm not making this up, means
I know it is
ammunition in the vicinity of the firearm.
Right.
That's loaded. So I will change the definition to bullets in the gun. I know, crazy, but that's true. So that's step one. So for people saying, Larry, can't we have constitutional carry? I can't get a definition.
Right.
That means bullets are in the gun. Can I have that first? Can I go there first? Give me that, right? So just you don't. And now add on top of that, if you draw your firearm in an attempt to stop a crime, that should not be a crime. Right now in New York State, that is a crime. So right now, if Skaggs is getting ready to stab Chris, and I pull out my gun and say, Skaggs, don't do it. If Skaggs doesn't do it, only I go to jail. If Skaggs does it, we both go to jail.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
I've seen that in practice back when I used to work on Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. A jewelry store got robbed. He pulled out his gun to defend himself against the robbers, and he was arrested and brought to jail for defending his jewelry store.
Yes. So this is what I'm saying. So people are like, constitutional carry. I can't get a guy trying to stop a crime to not go to Rikers Island. Can I get that first? Can I just get the fact that if you draw your firearm in an attempt to stop a crime, that is not a crime? Can I just do that? Right? Third, I want to make it to where New York State, when it comes to a permit, is not a may issue, but a shall issue state.
I think they're working on that.
Yeah, and they should. If you do not get your permit within 90 days, it is given. You just get it. So you if you don't get it by 90 days, it's yours. Done. If they tell you no, and I'm okay with counties having different rules. I'm okay with that. I am a localist. Counties have different rules. Brooklyn have different rules than Broome County. I'm fine with that, whatever. But if they tell you no, they must give you a reason and an appeals process. Right now, they don't have to. They don't have to give you any reason and no appeal. Just, I don't like people named Chris. No, that's fine. That is totally legal in New York State. They need to give you a reason why, and then an appeal process. I mean, I don't know, maybe, you got some guy who, was convicted of beating his spouse. And maybe they're worried about that. That's a reason, at least. Now the guy knows what's going on. Okay, this is why. Here's your appeals process. And you can go appeal and see, hey, I'm not that guy anymore. Was it me? I wasn't convicted. Or maybe it was you and you're dangerous. You shouldn't have a gun. Maybe. Mm-hmm. But whatever the case may be, you got to have an appeals process and you got to have a reason. We don't have that in New York State. So when people get mad at me and go, Larry, you should just want everyone to have, of course I would like people to carry. Of course I would. I just realized what state I live in.
Right. I get it. Yeah, I guess you could say almost ideologically they're rubber stamping no's in a way.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's amazing to the limit that they take it to. And this brings into my second question that, I don't know how policy can fix this. I don't know if you've ever really been asked anything like this, but New York is a huge state. Skaggs and I have been all over it, from downtown Manhattan to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, all the way up to the other side of the Catskills.
Broome County, where we go camping and whatnot.
Yeah, to places where when you're coming home, it says Albany South. You know what I mean? Like Utica.
I've been to all of those places, my friend, more than once.
And so my new favorite term is the big blue bubble, which is the 5 boroughs. How would you be able to find balance in the state? Because as far as I'm concerned, I understand the majority of the state lives in the boroughs. They have the most votes. Their votes. No, not
true. People think that, and that's one of the problems.
See, that's you're educating me.
Yes.
So, but I feel.
Remember, our state has about 18 million people, give or take, right? And only about 8 million live in New York City. So that's less than half. But not just that. Remember, 1/3 of people who live in New York City aren't born in the country. Another 1/3 aren't born in the city. Most people in New York City can't vote. You never get more than about 2 million votes out of the entire city. That's about the max you ever get.
Didn't they just change that? Didn't they just change that so that anybody could vote?
They're trying to, but that's only local.
Okay.
It's only local. Yes, they are changing that now, but it's only for local elections. So that's changing. But that's the reason why they had to, because most people in New York City can't vote. That's why that law matters. Does that make sense? Because most can't vote because of that purpose that most of them are not born in New York City. So Skaggs, me and you, we're weird. Chris, we're weird. We're the weird ones. We're born here. We're the minority, right? We're born here. But most aren't. So only about 2 million people out of New York City ever vote at highest, right? And there's 10 million registered voters in the state.
So it's just people not turning out to vote.
They don't vote. In certain areas upstate, they've already given up. Only 1 in 6 vote.
Well, because that's my question. The 2 million down in the city vote for more gun control, vote to make sure you can't carry, vote to think this is safer for me. Where yes, living in a condensed area like Brooklyn, maybe if less people had guns, it might be safer. I don't agree, but that's what you feel. But living up in Utica and Oswego and all that stuff, it's a different story. You could have walking your dog can be an adventure up there, but you have to abide.
Something that also I got to push back a little bit on. It isn't just New York City. Rochester votes blue. Buffalo votes blue. Ithaca votes blue.
Really?
Utica votes blue. Binghamton votes blue. Albany votes blue. It's not downstate versus upstate. It's urban versus rural.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's also just a larger kind of ideological struggle going on in our country and our society to begin with.
Which is the number one reason why the country's gone left.
Right.
The country's gone left for many reasons, but the number one reason is urbanization. Since 2008, there's been no real recovery except in cities. Outside of the cities, there's still no recovery. It's as broken as it was 12, 20, 15 years ago. Just as broken. No change whatsoever. So what does that mean? In the last, say, 10 years or so, about 80% of all new jobs have been in 20 U.S. cities. So we're all flocking to cities. When you flock to cities, you become more blue. Why? When you're in rural areas, you kind of know what the world is, the environment is, there's a cultural issue there. You come to the city, you're in a building where half of the people have been here less than 3 weeks, they have been here more than 30 years. They don't speak the same language, they don't have the same background. So what do you look for? You look for a referee. Who's the referee? Government.
Right.
That's why we call a cop for everything. For everything. That's a referee. So we call cops for everything. Cops should be beating up on bad guys. Cops shouldn't be coming in because I'm mad because you played some salsa music too loud or whatever the case may be. That's not the reason for a cop to be there, right? But we do that, right? Or somebody says something that got me mad, or someone parked their car in a wrong parking spot with a number on or whatever, right? That's what we call cops for now. So that's a natural thing. So the issue isn't downstate versus upstate. It really is urban versus rural. So if we keep that piece in mind, the question is, how do you get the urban voter to vote libertarian or to vote third party, right? Look, the forward party is behind me too, to vote third party. If you're a Republican, if you're listening to this right now, if you're a Republican and you're a hardcore Republican, think of what it would take for you to vote for a Democrat. Yeah, Democrats think the same about you. Both sides think the same way. It doesn't matter. Neither wants to vote for the other. So am I going to get city folk to all of a sudden vote blue? I mean, to vote red, or rural people all of a sudden vote blue? That's hard. But can I get them to vote third party? Yes. And the data's in. For my last run, about 25% of the people who voted for me were registered Democrats. And you see in the polling now, I'm polling at 6% right now, the last 2 Zogby polls. About 25% of those are Democrats. So I get Democrats to vote for me. The state is 3-1 Democrat to Republican. You can't win without Democrats.
Yeah.
So you have to get Democrats to vote for you. If you don't, it doesn't work. So 2 things. That's one. But number 2, to your point earlier, a lot of people don't vote. Turnout is often 30 or 40%. So not only do you have to get Democrats to vote for me, but I've also got to get people who don't vote to vote for me. And how to do that? Single issue voters. People. Now, here's the thing that drives me crazy. Gun owners didn't vote for me last time. How stupid. How blind. How insanely ignorant.
They're usually single issue voters too.
Yes. Yeah. And they either didn't vote, which is common in New York State. Most gun owners don't vote. They're giving up. Like, to your point, why bother? Chris, your thought process is common. People think that. Why bother?
Yeah. Somebody recently asked me when I told them that we were having you on, they were like, yeah, and who do you think is going to be like the Republican nominee? And I was like, I don't know, because honestly, what's the point?
Doesn't matter. Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're not that you're throwing away a vote, and yes, you need to get out there and vote. But
if you vote Republican, you're throwing your vote away. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Let me be
I believe
clear.
that.
If very clear, in New York State, in a statewide election, being very specific, I'm not against Republicans. But in New York State, in a statewide election, a Republican has not won an election in 20 years. And the state is getting bluer, not redder. The reason why Florida is no longer a swing state is we've exported all Republicans into Florida.
Yeah.
That's why it's a red state now. It used to be a swing state. Those days are over, thanks to New York, right? So if you're the Republican nominee in a statewide election is capped at about 35%. They're never going to make more than that. That's the highest they're ever going to get, right? The rest are going to either vote Democrat or something else. What does that mean? That means in New York State, in a statewide election, senator, governor, lieutenant governor, comptroller, whatever, it's either going to be the Democrat or an outsider. So maybe Mark Cuban comes up from Florida, acts like he's a New Yorker, writes big checks as independent, maybe he wins, right? So someone who can write massive checks can win, maybe. Or I hope it's a guy like me, right? If people do the right thing and realize voting for me, if the Republican gets 30% and Kathy Hochul makes enough mistakes where she only gets like 30%, I can win at 35%. New York State is not a majority state. It's a plurality state. Just whoever gets the most. So I don't have to break 51%.
Right.
You get more than the others. So if enough of that happens, I have a chance at victory. But let's say I don't win. Let's say I come in second. Say I beat the Republican. Wow, does that change everything?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, people have to hear what I have to say. I'm the only guy talking about actual
Solutions.
Policy, period.
Right, yeah.
Only one. So now you have to handle my solutions. You've got to make changes. If I come in a tight third, still wins. But Larry, you can't win. Then Hochul wins. There's nothing else. So you're going to either I'm going to win or Hochul's going to win. If Hochul wins, do you still want some change? Do you? Vote for me. That's what I'm telling you. If you go back to 2018, 5 people ran. Of those 5 people, I'm the only one still here. Everyone else is gone. If you took your time, money, and energy and put it into the Republican or the Democrat last time, you literally threw your vote away. What'd you get? Nothing. You got a crappy state with a bad governor who had to step down because he was more corrupt than we could even handle. Right? That's
Even
what you
we
got.
can handle, right?
Yeah.
And we handle a lot.
Yeah.
More corrupt than even we
It's
can
all
handle.
we handle.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
we popped champagne when he got, when he
Yeah.
stepped down. So literally,
I
on
was
we had a
actually
party.
doing my radio show when he resigned, and I was giddy.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
correct. Yes, I was giddy. I was so happy. But the point being, that's what you got. But if you voted for me or spent your time and money with my campaign, I'm still here,
Yeah.
still crossing the state, still building out a policy library. You go to LarrySharpe.com. That's a policy library to save New York. Anyone can take it.
Mhm.
When I did, if you saw the Joe Rogan interviews, you told me you did. At the end
Yeah.
of the interview, he said, if you remember, he said, Larry, you got some great policies. Where'd you get them from? I said, me and a team put them together. He goes, you better lock those down. I said, why? He goes, people will take them. I said, take them.
Good, right?
Take
Just
'em.
use them, please.
Fix
Yeah.
my state. I don't have to run. That'd be great. I can go back home. I got a family and friends and a business. I don't want to be doing this. Take them. Fix my state. That policy library's been there for 4 years. No one's taken anything. No one's taken anything. The
'Cause
only
they're not
thing.
interested in making things better. They're
Why
interested
bother?
in their own, their own income and
Correct.
the power they gain through it.
They're
Absolutely.
completely antithetical, I'd say, to people like me and you. I don't care about my team winning. I care about like Liberty winning. And I don't care if it's
Yes.
going to be me that does it or you that does it or Kathy
Yes.
Hochul that does it. As long as the Liberty is winning, that's fine. But they're the complete
Yes.
opposite, right? They care about themselves personally winning, which is
Correct. I have other things to do.
Yeah,
Right? So I can go live a life. If you get your boot off my neck, I
Yeah.
can just go do stuff.
Yeah.
So I would like you to pull your boot off my neck and you can go do your thing. I'll do mine and we'll all be fine. Life is good, right? People often say to me, Larry, do you think you're going to save the world? And I go, no, I don't think I'm going to save the world. But can I be the guy who sets up the world to be saved? Yes. I can be that guy. I can be the guy who begins to build out the idea that we can be saved so that whoever is the person or group of people who can do this can actually fix this stuff. Because right now, this may sound hyperbolic, but I mean this sincerely. This country is on its way to a very negative, bad place.
It's doomed.
Doomed.
Yes, they're not just 2 doomed men. There are a whole lot of doomed men. You guys just know it, but there's a whole lot of doomed men.
Doom Nation.
Yes, and I don't want that to happen. And I think that if we have some type of third party that gets people talking again, that gives people hope again, that makes people think that maybe we can fix this thing. The example I'll give you is Justin Amash. Justin Amash was our only libertarian senator back in 2020. I'm sorry, congressman. He left since. But when he was there, he tried to fix things.
Mhm.
What does that mean? As a libertarian, no one's going to pay attention to him. So he has to get people from the left and the right. And he created the only and first tripartisan bill ever. Because if you're a Democrat, you can't cross the aisle and talk to Republicans. You lose your seat. If you're a Republican, you can't cross the aisle and talk to Democrats. You lose your seat. But everyone can talk to libertarians. We are the peacemakers. We're the ones where you can actually talk to us and try to solve something. That's what I mean by third party. It does matter.
Fair.
I'm with it.
Very fair. Yeah.
Larry, if I was still in New York, you'd have my vote.
Thank you, my friend.
But unfortunately, I am registered now in Connecticut, which we will be at the Libertarian Party convention of Connecticut this Saturday, right, Chris? Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes,
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. But that's okay. You can still tell your friends in New York to vote for me.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's what you got me for. I'm the New Yorker. So
there we go. Yes, there we go.
Yes.
So I got at least one vote, 2 million more when I'm done.
Yeah,
That's all I need.
I'll see what I can do, pal.
Yeah, exactly. See how many million you can get from me. Appreciate it.
Yes. But you know, just if we get you up there, you know, in your acceptance speech, just you know, the two do men.
Yeah, don't forget to give us a shout out. Yeah,
we gotta be at the inauguration. Yeah,
absolutely. I was losing. I had no chance. Then I was on a Two Doom Men podcast, and that was what happened. That saved it.
Yeah,
there you go.
That was turning point.
Saving the planet. Yeah,
that's what it was.
Anything else, Gags?
That's it.
Yeah. All right, Larry, shout out everything, your campaigns, where we can find you, any rallies.
Google Larry Sharpe, and you will find me everywhere. You can check out LarrySharpe.com. Larry, I'm on all the things. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I'm on MeWe, Parler, Gab. I'm on all of them.
Nice.
Rumble, Odyssey, you name it. Larry Sharpe. I'm actually even on TikTok. Doesn't matter.
Oh, so
we
got
TikTok, so we're not there.
I am on everything. Google Larry Sharpe. You'll see me there. Please follow if you want to follow my cool show. It is called The Sharpe Way. Please happily check it out. And by the way, I did an entire show on crime just a couple days ago. If you want to check it out on the Sharpe Way, on my go to my Larry Sharpe YouTube. You can see all my shows. I did one specifically on crime a couple days ago.
Awesome,
Larry. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It was great. We learned something.
Thank you, guys.
It was really interesting. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much. This was an awesome episode. So, Doom Nation, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I hope you found a new candidate in Larry over here. Thank you again, Larry, and adios, Doom Nation.